Now let's begin. The rental Jeep kicked up dust as it climbed the mountain road outside Austin. Greg Kuhn kept one hand on the wheel, the other holding his phone to his ear. His daughter's voice bubbled with excitement on the other end. "Dad, I promise we'll be careful. It's just Cancun for spring break. May and Laurel are going, and May's brother is flying down too." Greg watched the limestone cliffs pass by his window. 48 years old, silver threading through his dark hair, he'd traded tactical gear for contractor's jeans 3 years ago. The transition hadn't been smooth. Some nights, he still woke up reaching for a sidearm that wasn't there. "Sherry, I'm not worried about you being careful. I'm worried about everyone else down there not being careful." She laughed. "You can't run background checks on every college kid in Mexico. Watch me, Dad." Her tone shifted, that particular inflection she used when she was about to get serious. 20 years old, pre-med at UT Austin, she'd inherited his stubbornness along with his green eyes. "I know the last 3 years have been hard. Since Mom died, you've been different, more protective, but I need you to trust me." Greg pulled into the gravel lot of his current job site, a ranch house renovation that was already 2 weeks behind schedule. The client, a tech millionaire from California, wanted everything yesterday. The work kept Greg's hands busy, which was the point. Idle hands meant idle thoughts, and idle thoughts meant remembering things he'd spent 15 years doing in places that didn't officially exist on any map. "I trust you completely," he said. "It's the rest of the world I have problems with. I'll text you every day, morning and night." "Deal." He killed the engine. "Morning, noon, and night." "You're impossible." That's what the Army used to say. After they hung up, Greg sat in the truck for a moment. His phone's wallpaper showed Sherry at her high school graduation, cap tilted at an angle, that infectious smile that reminded him so much of her mother. Rebecca had been gone 3 years. Pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Those 6 months had been harder than any mission he'd run in Colombia, harder than the ambush in the jungle outside Cali that had earned him a scar across his ribs and a classified commendation he couldn't tell anyone about. The construction site was quiet. His crew wouldn't arrive for another hour. Greg used the time to run through his morning routine. 5 miles on the property perimeter, bodyweight exercises that he'd done in 1,000 temporary barracks and safe houses. His body remembered the patterns, even if his mind had tried to forget. His phone buzzed with a text from Randall George. "Still on for Poker Friday?" Randall had been his spotter in Colombia, a Dallas native who could shoot a fly off a beer can at 800 meters. Now he ran a gun range in Killeen. Most of Greg's old squad had scattered after they'd been officially disbanded. Some had gone private contractor, some law enforcement, some had simply disappeared into civilian life like smoke. Greg texted back, "Bring your wallet." The crew arrived at 7. Greg spent the day reframing a wall that the previous contractor had somehow installed crooked. Physical work helped, kept his mind from wandering to the 18 months he'd spent embedded with Colombian intelligence, running operations against the Medellin cartel's remnants. Kept him from remembering the villa outside Cali, where they'd cornered Ramon Cortez, one of the last old guard sicarios. Kept him from remembering what Cortez had said before Greg put a bullet in him. "You Americans think you're hunting us. You're just making space for someone worse." That night, Greg made dinner. Chicken fajitas, Sherry's favorite. He ate alone at the kitchen table in the house that felt too big now. Rebecca had insisted on 5 bedrooms. "Room to grow," she'd said. They'd never gotten around to filling the extra rooms. His phone rang at 11 p.m. Sherry's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, kiddo, shouldn't you be packing?" "I am. Just wanted to say goodnight. We're flying out tomorrow afternoon." They talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. Her final exams, whether she should pack the blue bikini or the red one, how May's brother Dennis was apparently insufferable. Normal conversation, the kind Greg had learned to treasure. After hanging up, he walked to his office, the smallest bedroom, converted into a workspace that didn't see much use. In the closet, behind boxes of Rebecca's clothes he hadn't been able to donate, sat a locked gun safe. Inside, his service pistol, a Sig Sauer he'd carried for 7 years. Also inside, a sealed envelope containing 6 phone numbers written in his handwriting, no names attached. The numbers for his old squad. Randall George. Floyd Harvey, who'd been their communications expert. Rex Casey, their medic. Wes Gomez, their demo man. And 2 others who'd gone so deep into private contracting that even Greg wasn't sure what countries they operated in anymore. He hadn't needed to open that envelope in 3 years. Hadn't wanted to. Greg locked the safe and went to bed, setting his alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow he'd drive Sherry to the airport, watch her disappear through security with May Terry and Laurel Farley, and then come home to an empty house and a half-finished renovation job. He didn't dream. He'd trained himself years ago not to dream. The airport was chaos. Spring break crowds flooded every terminal. Greg helped carry Sherry's oversized suitcase to the check-in counter, earning an eye roll. "Dad, I can handle my own luggage. Humor me." May and Laurel waited by the security line, both glued to their phones. May looked up long enough to wave. Her brother Dennis stood apart, scrolling through his phone with the air of someone too cool for his surroundings. 23, worked in finance, wore a suit jacket with designer jeans. Greg had met him twice and disliked him both times. "You have your phone charger?" Greg asked. "Yes." "Passport?" "Dad, just checking." Sherry hugged him tight. "I'll be fine. I'll text you when we land." He watched her join her friends, watched them disappear through the security checkpoint. Sherry looked back once, gave him a wave and that smile. Then she was gone. Greg drove home in silence. The house felt emptier than usual. He threw himself into work, spending the next 2 days finishing the ranch house framing and starting on the electrical. His phone stayed in his pocket, close. Sherry's text came like clockwork. "Landed safely. Hotel is amazing. Beach is gorgeous." On the 3rd day, her afternoon text didn't come. Greg checked his phone at 2 p.m. Nothing. At 3, he sent a message. "Everything okay?" No response. At 4, he called. Straight to voicemail. He told himself not to worry. Dead phone battery. Lost in the moment. She was 20 years old on spring break in Mexico, not a soldier on patrol in hostile territory. At 5 p.m., his phone buzzed. Video message from an unknown number. Greg's blood went cold before he even opened it. The video was 20 seconds long. Shot in dim lighting, handheld, shaky. Sherry knelt on a concrete floor, hands zip-tied behind her back. Her face was streaked with tears, eyes wide with terror. Behind her stood a man Greg couldn't see clearly. Just a shadow, one hand gripping Sherry's hair, pulling her head back. The other hand held a machete, the blade resting against her throat. A voice spoke in accented English. Calm, almost friendly. "Mr. Greg Kuhn. Former military, I understand. Black operations in Colombia? Yes? Very impressive resume." The machete pressed closer to Sherry's neck. She whimpered. "Your daughter is lovely. Very polite. She has been telling me about her studies. Pre-med, such ambition." A pause. "I require $5 million. U.S. currency. You have 72 hours to arrange transfer. Instructions will follow. If you contact police, FBI, anyone in authority, I will remove your daughter's head and mail it to your home in 3 separate boxes." The blade traced along Sherry's jawline. "Do not test me. I am a businessman, Mr. Kuhn. I always keep my promises." The video ended. Greg played it again and again. His hands didn't shake. His breathing stayed steady. 3 years of civilian life hadn't erased 15 years of training. He watched the video 12 times, noting every detail. The concrete floor, industrial, recently poured. The lighting, fluorescent, overhead. The sound, a distant hum, machinery or generator. Sherry's clothing, same outfit from her morning beach photo. Timeline, taken today, probably within the last few hours. The man's voice, educated, careful pronunciation. The reference to Greg's military background meant research. The $5 million demand meant someone with resources who knew Greg couldn't easily access that kind of money, which meant this wasn't really about the ransom. This was about leverage, about making him desperate. Greg set his phone on the kitchen table. He walked to his office, opened the gun safe, took out the envelope with 6 phone numbers. He didn't call the FBI. He didn't call the police. He called Randall George. "Hey, Greg, poker game's not until. I need the team. All of them. How fast can you get to Austin? A pause. Randall's voice changed, losing its casual tone. What's the situation? Sherry's been taken. Mexico. Professional operation. I need everyone here by tomorrow morning. Copy that. I'll make calls. What's the play? Greg looked at the video on his phone, frozen on the image of his daughter's terrified face. We're going hunting. By midnight, his kitchen had become an operations center. Randall George arrived first, driving straight from Colleen with a duffel bag of equipment Greg didn't ask about. Floyd Harvey flew in from Houston, still wearing his suit from whatever cybersecurity job he'd been doing. Rex Casey drove up from San Antonio, looking exactly the same as he had 7 years ago, built like a linebacker, moving with a medic's precise efficiency. Wes Gomez was the last to arrive, pulling up in a truck with New Mexico plates just after 2 a.m. He'd aged the most, more gray in his beard, but his eyes still had that dangerous spark that had made him the best demolitions expert Greg had ever worked with. They gathered around Greg's kitchen table. No one asked if this was legal. No one suggested calling authorities. They'd all been in rooms like this before, planning operations that officially never happened. Greg played the video. Once. No one spoke until it finished. How long ago? Randall asked. 7 hours. 72-hour deadline. 65 now. Floyd already had his laptop open. Send me that video file. I can pull metadata, try to trace the number. Already tried, Greg said. Burner phone. Routed through 3 different countries. Dead end. Then we work it the old way, Rex said. Where was she taken? Cancun. Hotel Paraiso. Beachfront. She texted me at noon, said they were going to the beach. Next text was this video at 5 p.m. That's a 5-hour window, Wes said. Broad daylight kidnapping in a tourist zone means either they're very good or very bold. Both, Greg said. The voice on that video. I know who that is. Everyone looked at him. Pedro Holmes. Randall's expression darkened. The Pedro Holmes? Same one. Floyd stopped typing. Jesus Christ. He's supposed to be dead. He was supposed to be a lot of things, Greg said. Pedro Holmes. The name brought back memories Greg had tried to bury. 15 years ago, Holmes had been a middle-level enforcer for the Cali Cartel, a specialist in kidnapping and extortion. Educated in Miami, fluent in 4 languages, he'd run operations that were surgical in their precision. When the Colombian government cracked down, most of the old cartel leadership died or went to prison. Holmes had simply disappeared. Intelligence suggested he'd relocated to Mexico, building a new organization from scratch. Smaller than the old cartels, more sophisticated. He specialized in high-value targets, businessmen, politicians, wealthy tourists. His operations were clean, professional, and he had a reputation for always keeping his promises. If he said he'd kill you, he killed you. If he said he'd let you go, he let you go. Greg had crossed paths with Holmes once, during an operation in Colombia. They'd raided a compound outside Bogota, looking for a kidnapped American engineer. Holmes had been there, had escaped through a tunnel network that collapsed behind him. Greg had spent 3 days tracking him through the jungle before losing the trail. Holmes had sent a message later, delivered through intermediaries. Tell the American that next time, I won't run. He knows who I am, Greg said. This isn't random. He targeted Sherry specifically. Revenge play? Rex asked. Or a test? Randall said. See if you're still operational. Doesn't matter why, Greg said. What matters is finding him. Floyd's fingers flew across the keyboard. If Holmes is running the operation, he'll be in Mexico. Probably Quintana Roo, near his hunting grounds. But he's smart. He won't keep her at his main location. How many sites does he have? According to DEA intelligence, which is 3 years old, he had at least 5 properties in the region. Villas, warehouses, that compound in the jungle west of Playa del Carmen. We need current intel, West said. I know someone, Greg said. Jordan Golden. Remember him? CIA liaison in Bogota, Randall said. He's still in the game? Last I heard, he was station chief in Mexico City. Greg walked to his office, found another number buried in his old files. It was 4 a.m., but Golden answered on the 3rd ring. This is a number I haven't seen in a long time. I need a favor, Jordan. Greg Kuhn. I heard you retired. I did. I need back in for one night. A pause. What's the situation? Greg explained, keeping it brief. When he finished, Golden was quiet for a long moment. Holmes is bad news. We've been tracking him for years, but he's a ghost. Smart. Careful. Never stays in one place long. Do you have current locations on his properties? I have 3 confirmed addresses. But Greg, listen to me. You cannot run an operation on Mexican soil. If you get caught, I can't help you. You'll start a diplomatic incident. I'm not asking for permission. I know. That's what worries me. Another pause. I'll send you what I have. Encrypted channel, same protocol we used in Colombia. But Greg? Holmes is not the same man you faced 15 years ago. He's built an empire down here. He has money, resources, protection. You're walking into a hornet's nest. Then I better bring enough smoke. Golden sent the files within the hour. Greg's team gathered around Floyd's laptop, studying satellite imagery and intelligence reports. 3 properties. A villa on the coast north of Cancun, isolated, heavy security. A warehouse complex near Playa del Carmen, used for logistics. And a compound in the jungle, 40 miles inland, accessible only by a single dirt road. The villa, Randall said. That's where he'll be, close to Cancun, secure, demonstrates power. Too obvious, Rex said. He knows Greg won't pay. He's expecting a rescue attempt. The villa's a trap. What about the warehouse? Wes asked. Storage and distribution, Floyd said, reading the intelligence. Minimal security, high turnover. Not a place you'd keep a hostage. The compound, Greg said. That's his real base. Isolated, defensible, off the grid. It's also 40 miles into jungle, Randall said. One road in and out. If things go wrong, things won't go wrong. They worked through the night, building the plan. Floyd hacked into Mexican telecommunications networks, mapping cell tower coverage and radio frequencies. Wes sketched out breach points and fallback positions. Rex compiled medical supplies and trauma kits. Randall cleaned and checked weapons pulled from the various duffel bags now scattered across Greg's living room. By dawn, they had a plan. Risky, aggressive, with about a dozen points where everything could go catastrophically wrong. But it was a plan. We need equipment, Randall said. Serious equipment. Weapons, explosives, tactical gear. Can't fly commercial with that. Leave that to me, Greg said. He made another call, this one to Edgar Atkinson, a private pilot he'd worked with during his contractor days. Atkinson owned a cargo business, flying construction equipment and agricultural supplies across Central America. He also, occasionally, flew things that didn't appear on any manifest. Edgar, I need a plane. Tonight. Austin is somewhere near Cancun, off the books. How far off the books? Completely dark. That's expensive, Greg. I'll pay double your rate. Cash. Plus hazard pay. What am I flying? 5 passengers and equipment that will make Mexican customs very unhappy. Edgar laughed. You back in the game? One night only. I can be at Austin Executive Airport at 10 p.m. Small hangar on the south side. Bring your cash and your gear. But Greg? If this goes bad, it won't. That's what everyone says. Greg spent the day making final preparations. He withdrew $30,000 from various accounts, payment for Edgar and operational expenses. He wrote a letter to his lawyer, sealed it in an envelope with instructions to open it only if he didn't return. He stood in Sherry's room for a long time, looking at her pre-med textbooks, the photos taped to her mirror, the stuffed animal she'd had since she was 6. At 6 p.m., his phone buzzed. Another video from the unknown number. This one was shorter. Sherry, same concrete room, same zip ties. But now there was a newspaper in the frame, today's date clearly visible. Proof of life. Holmes's voice came through again. 48 hours remaining, Mr. Kuhn. I do hope you're being sensible. Your daughter is being very brave. It would be unfortunate if that bravery went to waste. Greg watched Sherry's face. She was terrified, but she wasn't broken. She'd inherited his stubbornness in more ways than one. He texted back to the unknown number. I'm working on getting the money. Need more time. The response came immediately. No extensions. 72 hours. Clock is ticking. Greg deleted the conversation and went to join his team. At 9 p.m., they loaded equipment into 2 trucks, Randall's and Wes's. Weapons cases, tactical gear, explosives, communications equipment. Everything they need for a hostile insertion into a fortified compound. They drove separately to Austin Executive Airport, using different routes. Edgar's plane was waiting in the hangar as promised. A twin-engine Beechcraft King Air, civilian markings completely unremarkable. Edgar himself was 50, weathered, with the look of a man who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. Good to see you, Greg. You too. Thanks for this. Thank me when you're back on U.S. soil. Edgar nodded at the team, loading gear into the plane. These the same boys from Colombia? Most of them. Then Holmes is in for a bad night. They took off at 11 p.m., climbing into dark sky. The flight would take 4 hours, landing at a small airstrip near Tulum that Edgar had used before. No tower, no customs, just a runway and some storage sheds owned by someone who asked no questions as long as the money was good. Greg sat in the back of the plane, checking equipment. His old tactical vest still fit, though he'd added a few pounds in 3 years. The Sig Sauer felt right in his hand, familiar weight and balance. He'd added a K-bar knife to his belt, not regulation, just personal preference. Randall sat across from him, cleaning his rifle, a Remington 700 with custom modifications. You know this is crazy, right? Probably. Good. Just wanted to make sure we were on the same page. Floyd had his laptop out, still pulling data. I've been mapping Holmes's organization. He runs about 50 guys, mostly former Cartel sicarios. Experienced, well-armed, loyal. The compound will have at least 20 on site, maybe more. 5 against 20, Rex said. I've faced worse odds. When? Wes asked. Fallujah, 2004. But I was younger and stupider then. You're still stupid, Randall said. Just older. Despite the tension, they laughed. It felt like old times. These men had been his family once, in a way only combat brothers could be. They'd trusted him with their lives, and he'd trusted them with his. That bond didn't fade, didn't diminish with time or distance. The plane descended through darkness. Edgar's voice crackled over the intercom. 5 minutes to landing. Welcome to Mexico, gentlemen. Try not to start a war. No promises, Greg said. They landed on the dark runway, Edgar killing the engines as soon as the wheels touched down. A truck was waiting. Another of Edgar's arrangements, a beat-up Ford that wouldn't attract attention. They offloaded equipment quickly, working in practice silence. Edgar shook Greg's hand. I'll be here for 12 hours. After that, I'm gone. We'll be done in 6. Sure you will. Edgar climbed back into his plane. Good hunting, Greg. They drove inland, following GPS coordinates to a position 5 miles from Holmes's compound. The jungle was dense, alive with sound. Insects, birds, animals Greg couldn't identify. It reminded him of Colombia, of nights spent moving through similar terrain. They parked the truck in thick vegetation, covering it with branches and netting. From here, they'd go on foot. It was 2 a.m. 42 hours until Holmes's deadline, but Greg had no intention of waiting that long. They moved through the jungle in tactical formation, Floyd leading with night vision, Randall at rear security. Greg stayed in the middle, his focus absolute. Every sound, every shadow, every shift in the wind. He processed it all, looking for threats. The compound appeared through the trees after an hour of slow movement. Exactly as Golden's intelligence had described. 10-foot walls, guard towers at each corner, a main villa in the center, outbuildings scattered around. Lights blazed in the courtyard. Greg counted 6 guards visible, automatic weapons slung across their chests. They set up an observation post in dense vegetation 200 meters out. Randall assembled his rifle, settling into a sniper position. Floyd pulled out a directional microphone, listening to conversations in the compound. Wes studied the walls, planning breach points. Rex organized medical supplies. Greg watched the villa through binoculars. Most of the windows were dark, but light showed on the second floor. In one window, he saw movement, a figure passing by, too quick to identify. I've got their radio frequency, Floyd whispered. They're using encrypted comms, but old encryption. I can break it. How long? Give me 20 minutes. While Floyd worked, Greg studied the compound's defenses. The walls were stone and concrete, professionally built. The guard towers gave overlapping fields of fire. Anyone approaching would be caught in a crossfire. The single gate was reinforced steel with a guardhouse. Professional work. But there were weaknesses. The jungle grew close to the eastern wall, providing cover. The roof of the villa was flat, accessible. And guard patterns were predictable. They were good, but they were comfortable, used to no one being stupid enough to attack them. Got it, Floyd said. Their comms are live. Listening now. Spanish voices crackled through Floyd's headphones. He translated in real time. Routine check-ins. Guard rotation at 3 a.m. They're talking about shit. They're moving the girl. Greg's blood went cold. Where? Tomorrow morning. Different location. They're saying, the boss wants her somewhere more secure. He's paranoid about rescue attempts. That's because he knows I'm coming, Greg said. Timeline just moved up. We hit them now. Now, Rex said. It's 3 hours until dawn. We haven't finished recon. If we wait, she's gone. We do this now, or we don't do it at all. Randall looked through his scope. Your call, boss. We're with you. Greg checked his watch. 3 a.m. The compound would be at minimum alertness, guards tired from night watch. It was actually optimal timing. If you were crazy enough to assault a fortified position with 5 guys against 20. Here's the play, Greg said. Wes, you take the east wall. Plant charges at 2 points, blow them simultaneously. That's our breach. Randall, you stay here, provide overwatch. Anyone who looks like they're organizing resistance, drop them. Floyd, you're on comms. Jam their radios as soon as we breach. Rex, you're with me. We go through the breach, straight to the villa, find Sherry, extract. What about exfil? Floyd asked. Same way we came in. Fast and loud. Fast and loud is my specialty, Wes said, grinning. They moved into position. Wes disappeared into the jungle, circling toward the east wall with his explosives kit. Greg and Rex moved closer, finding cover 50 meters from the breach point. Randall settled into his hide, rifle trained on the compound. Floyd set up his jamming equipment, ready to scramble their communications. Time stretched. Greg's heart rate stayed steady, training overriding adrenaline. He'd done this 100 times before, maybe more. Every mission was different, but the fundamentals never changed. Speed, violence, surprise. His radio clicked. Wes's voice, barely audible. Charges set. Ready on your mark. Greg took a breath. Thought of Sherry's face in that video, the terror in her eyes. Thought of Rebecca, who'd made him promise before she died to take care of their daughter. Thought of Holmes, who'd made this personal. All units stand by. He counted to 3. Execute. The jungle erupted. 2 massive explosions tore through the east wall, sending stone and concrete flying. Alarms shrieked. Shouts filled the compound. Randall's rifle barked. Once, twice. Guards in the towers dropping like puppets with cut strings. Greg and Rex sprinted through the smoke and debris, weapons up. A guard stumbled through the breach, disoriented. Rex put 2 rounds in his chest. Another appeared to their left. Greg fired, dropping him. They crossed the courtyard in seconds. More guards poured from the outbuildings. Randall's rifle continued its steady rhythm. Crack, crack, crack. Each shot finding its target. Floyd's jamming equipment filled the air with static, preventing coordination. The villa's front door burst open. 3 guards emerged, weapons firing. Greg dove behind a fountain, rounds sparking off stone. Rex rolled right, came up firing, dropped 1 guard. Greg took the other 2 with controlled double taps. They breached the villa's entrance. Interior was opulent. Marble floors, expensive furniture, art on the walls. Wes appeared behind them, smoke still clinging to his jacket. Walls clear. We got about 2 minutes before they organize a counterattack. Second floor, Greg said. That's where the light was. They moved up the staircase, clearing rooms. Empty, empty, empty. Then voices, Spanish, arguing. A door at the end of the hall. Greg kicked it open. The room was a bedroom, lavishly furnished. A man stood by the window, phone in hand. Not Holmes. Younger, harder features. One of his lieutenants. He dropped the phone, reached for a pistol on the dresser. Rex shot him through the shoulder. The man went down screaming. "Where is she?" Greg demanded in Spanish. The man clutched his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. "You're dead. You're all dead. El Jeef will." Greg pressed his pistol against the man's head. "Last chance. Where's the girl?" "Basement. Processing room." "But you'll never." Greg pistol whipped him unconscious and moved back into the hallway. "Basement. Wes, you know what processing room means?" "Yeah. Place where they prep people for disposal." Wes's expression was grim. "We need to move fast." They found stairs leading down. The basement was colder, more industrial. Concrete walls, exposed pipes, fluorescent lighting. Doors lined the corridor, storage, generator room, what looked like an office. At the end of the hall, a reinforced door. Locked. "Wes." "Stand back." Wes planted a small charge on the lock mechanism. The explosion was controlled, precise, blowing the lock apart without bringing down the door. Greg kicked it open and went in fast. The room was exactly what he'd feared. Concrete floor, drainage grates, industrial lights. A table with restraints. But it was empty. No Sherry. "She's not here," Rex said. Greg's mind raced. The lieutenant had said processing room. Maybe he was lying. Or maybe an engine roared outside. Greg ran back upstairs, through the villa, out into the courtyard. A black SUV was racing toward the gate, guards firing, covering shots from the outbuildings. Randall's voice crackled over the radio. "Vehicle leaving compound, eastbound." "Should I take it?" "Negative," Greg said. "That might be her in there. We need it intact." The SUV crashed through the damaged gate and disappeared into the jungle. "We've got company," Wes said. More guards were emerging from the outbuildings, at least a dozen. "Time to go." They fought their way back to the breach in the east wall, laying down suppressing fire. Randall continued picking off targets from his sniper position. They made it through just as the compound's guards began organizing a proper defense. The jungle swallowed them. Behind, the sounds of pursuit, shouts, engines starting. They reached the observation post. Randall was already packing his rifle. "That went well." "She wasn't there," Greg said. "I saw. But we got bigger problems." That SUV went east, and they just radioed for backup. "We got about 10 minutes before this jungle is crawling with sicarios." Then we chased the SUV. "Greg," Floyd said carefully. "We don't know if she was in that vehicle. Could be a decoy. Could be Holmes evacuating. We need to think this through." "No time to think. That's the only lead we have." They moved fast through the jungle, following the dirt road the SUV had taken. But tracking a vehicle on foot was hopeless. After 20 minutes, they had to admit defeat. "We need a new plan," Rex said. Greg's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered without speaking. Holmes's voice came through, smooth and amused. "Mr. Kuhn." That was quite the demonstration. Impressive, really. 23 of my men dead. Compound severely damaged. You still got skills. "Where's my daughter?" "Safe. For now. But I'm afraid your little raid has complicated matters. I gave you 72 hours as a courtesy. You violated that courtesy. So the terms have changed." "What terms?" "You want your daughter back? Come get her. Personally. Alone. I'm texting you an address. Be there at dawn. Just you, Mr. Kuhn. If I see your friends, if I see anyone else, your daughter dies. Are we clear?" "Crystal." "Good. And Mr. Kuhn? I've been waiting 15 years to finish what we started in Colombia. Don't disappoint me." The line went dead. A text came through. GPS coordinates and 2 words. "Come home." Greg showed his team the message. Randall studied the coordinates on his phone. "That's the villa, the one on the coast." "He's challenging you," Floyd said. "This is personal for him too." "It's a trap," Rex said. "Has to be." "Of course it's a trap," Greg said. "But it's also our only option." "Then we all go," Randall said. "No. He'll kill her if he sees you. This has to be me alone." "That's suicide." "Maybe. But it's the only way." They argued for 5 minutes. Intense, heated, no one backing down. Finally, Greg cut through. "This isn't a debate. I'm going alone. You guys extract to the airfield, get home. If I don't make it out." "Fuck that," Wes said. "We didn't come all this way to leave you hanging. Then stay close, but stay hidden. If things go bad, you can improvise. But I go in alone. That's final." They made it back to the truck, and drove toward the coast as dawn broke over the jungle. The villa was 2 hours away. Time enough to plan, to think, to prepare for whatever Holmes had waiting. Time enough to realize he might not walk out alive. But Greg had made peace with that possibility years ago. All that mattered was getting Sherry out safely. Everything else was secondary. The coast appeared through the trees, pristine beaches, turquoise water, the kind of paradise that drew tourists from around the world. The villa sat on a promontory, isolated, beautiful, with a view that probably cost more than Greg had made in his entire military career. They parked a mile away. Greg checked his weapons, Sig Sauer, K-bar knife, 2 spare magazines. Not much for walking into a trap. You sure about this? Randall asked. No, but I'm doing it anyway. We'll be watching. First sign of trouble. I know. Greg walked down the road alone, morning sun at his back. The villa grew larger with each step. White walls, red tile roof, palm trees swaying in the breeze. No guards visible, but they'd be there. Watching. Waiting. The gate was open. An invitation. Greg walked through into a courtyard decorated with fountains and gardens. Still no guards. Just silence and the sound of waves. Mr. Kuhn. The voice came from a second-floor balcony. Welcome. Please come inside. The front door is unlocked. Holmes's voice. Cordial. Almost friendly. Greg entered the villa. The interior was magnificent. High ceilings, expensive furniture, art that probably belonged to museums. And in the center of the main room, sitting in a leather chair, was Pedro Holmes. He looked older than Greg remembered, 55, maybe 60, hair gone gray, lines around his eyes. But still fit, still sharp. He wore white linen pants and a silk shirt, holding a glass of what looked like whiskey. You look well, Mr. Kuhn. Retirement suits you. Where's my daughter? Direct. I always appreciated that about you. Holmes sipped his drink. She's here. Upstairs. Unharmed, I promise. But before we discuss her release, you and I need to have a conversation. About what? About respect. About consequences. About the fact that 15 years ago, you hunted me through the jungle like an animal. I survived that hunt, Mr. Kuhn, but I never forgot it. I built all of this, he gestured to the villa, to prove I was more than prey. To prove I was the hunter. Is that what this is? Revenge? No. This is a lesson. You disrupted my operation in Colombia. You killed my colleagues. You made me run. And tonight you killed 23 more of my men, destroyed my compound. Actions have consequences, Mr. Kuhn. Then let's settle this, Greg said. You and me. Let Sherry go, and we can finish what we started. Holmes smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. But first, a demonstration. He snapped his fingers. A door opened, and 2 guards entered, dragging someone between them. Greg's stomach dropped. It was Dennis Avery, May's brother, the finance guy who'd been on the trip. His face was bruised, eyes swollen shut, blood crusting his nose. Mr. Avery here was very helpful, Holmes said. He told us everything about your daughter's travel plans, her hotel, her schedule, all for the price of his own life. Dennis looked at Greg with shame and terror. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. They said they'd let me go if I cooperated. And I keep my promises, Holmes said. He pulled a gold-plated pistol from inside his jacket and shot Dennis through the head. The body crumpled to the floor. Blood pooled on the white marble. That's what happens to those who betray their friends, Holmes said, as casually as if he'd just swatted a fly. Now then, your daughter. Greg forced himself to stay calm, to not react to the murder he'd just witnessed. Where is she? Upstairs. 3rd door on the left. Go ahead. Take her. She's free to leave. Just like that. Just like that. I'm a man of my word, Mr. Kuhn. Your daughter has done nothing to offend me. This was always about you and me. It was too easy, but Greg had no choice. He moved toward the stairs, watching Holmes the entire time. The man just smiled and sipped his whiskey. Greg climbed to the 2nd floor, found a 3rd door, opened it. Sherry sat on a bed, hands still zip-tied, but otherwise unharmed. When she saw him, her eyes went wide with relief and terror. Dad! He cut her zip ties with his knife, pulled her into his arms. She was shaking. It's okay. I've got you. We're going home. He's going to kill you, she whispered. He told me. He said he was letting me go so he could kill you. I know. Stay behind me. They moved back downstairs. Holmes was still in his chair, pistol resting on his lap. How touching, he said. Family reunions always make me emotional. Now, Sherry dear, please go outside. Walk straight down the road. My men have been instructed not to stop you. You're free. Dad, go, Greg said softly. Get to safety. My team is out there. They'll find you. I can't leave you. You can and you will. Now, go. Sherry looked between him and Holmes, tears streaming down her face. Then she ran, out the door, across the courtyard through the gate. Greg watched until she disappeared, then turned back to Holmes. Your move, Holmes said. You got what you wanted. Why don't you just let this go? Because you need to understand something, Mr. Coon. I'm not the man you hunted in Colombia. I'm not prey. I'm the apex predator here. And apex predators don't let challenges go unanswered. Then answer it. Holmes stood, setting his glass aside. The gold pistol remained in his hand, but pointed at the floor. Very well. But let's make this interesting. I could simply shoot you, but where's the sport in that? No, I think we should settle this the old-fashioned way. He set the pistol on a side table, 20 feet away from both of them. Then stepped back. First one to reach the gun wins. Fair. Nothing about this was fair. Holmes was closer to the gun by at least 3 steps. But Greg had run out of options. On 3, Holmes said. 1. Greg's muscles coiled. 2. Everything slowed. Greg saw the distance to the gun, saw Holmes's position, calculated angles and timing. 3. They both moved. Holmes lunged for the gun, hand outstretched. Greg dove forward, not toward the gun but toward Holmes, driving his shoulder into the man's midsection. They crashed to the floor together, sliding across polished marble. Holmes was fast, recovering quickly, throwing punches. Greg blocked, countered, years of hand-to-hand training taking over. They grappled, rolled, each trying for advantage. Holmes reached for a knife at his ankle. Greg saw the blade flash, twisted away, felt it slice across his forearm. Shallow cut, painful but not disabling. He grabbed Holmes's wrist, twisted hard, heard bones crack. The knife clattered away. They broke apart, both breathing hard. Holmes's right wrist hung at an odd angle, broken. But his left hand shot out, grabbing the gold pistol from the table. He brought it up, finger tightening on the trigger. Greg's K-bar knife was in his hand without conscious thought, drawing, throwing, all in one fluid motion. Years of practice, hundreds of hours drilling the same movement until it was pure muscle memory. The blade buried itself in Holmes's throat. The gun fired, but the shot went wide, impacting the ceiling. Holmes staggered back, both hands clutching at the knife, blood pumping between his fingers. His eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. He tried to speak, but only managed a wet gurgle. Then his knees buckled and he collapsed. Greg stood over him, watching the life fade from Pedro Holmes's eyes. It took maybe 30 seconds. Felt like longer. When it was done, when Holmes lay still in a spreading pool of blood, Greg walked to where the gold pistol had fallen. He picked it up, noted the craftsmanship, custom work, expensive. A trophy from a man who'd thought he was untouchable. Greg left it on the floor and walked out of the villa. Outside, the sun was fully up now, brilliant morning light painting the ocean. He found Sherry down the road, surrounded by his team. Randall had given her his jacket. She was crying, Rex checking her for injuries. When she saw Greg, she ran to him again. He held her tight, feeling the weight of the last 48 hours finally settling on his shoulders. Is he? She started. He's gone. It's over. Sirens wailed in the distance. Mexican police, probably responding to reports of gunfire. Time to go, Floyd said. They made it to Edgar's plane with 20 minutes to spare. Edgar was already warming the engines when they climbed aboard. Successful trip? He asked. Could have gone better, Greg said. They were wheels up before the police arrived at the villa. The flight home was quiet. Sherry slept against Greg's shoulder, exhausted. The team cleaned weapons, organized gear, prepared for re-entry to their civilian lives. Randall sat next to Greg. Hell of a thing. Yeah. You okay? Greg thought about it. About Holmes lying dead in that villa. About Dennis Avery's execution. About the choices he'd made and the life he'd left behind 3 years ago. I will be, he said. They landed at Austin Executive Airport just after noon. Edgar helped them unload equipment, took his payment, asked no questions about the blood on their clothes or the girl who'd been missing 48 hours. "You need anything else?" Edgar said. "You know how to reach me." "Thanks, but I think I'm done with this life for good now." That's what they all say. Greg drove Sherry home in his truck. She stared out the window, not speaking. Processing. Trauma didn't vanish just because the danger was over. At the house, he made her tea, wrapped her in blankets, let her cry. They'd deal with the official story later. Kidnapping, escape, details that would satisfy the FBI and Mexican authorities without revealing the full truth. That evening, after Sherry had finally fallen into exhausted sleep on the couch, Greg stood in his office. He opened the gun safe, put away his Sig Sauer, locked it. Then he took the envelope with the 6 phone numbers and burned it in the kitchen sink, watching the paper turn to ash. Those numbers were committed to memory anyway, but the gesture felt important. A line drawn, a chapter closed. His phone rang. Unknown number, but not Holmes's burner. Greg answered. "Mr. Kuhn, Jordan Golden. I heard about what happened to the villa." "Yeah." Official Mexican statement is that Pedro Holmes was killed during a dispute with a rival cartel. Very convenient. DEA is calling it a major win against organized crime. Glad I could help. Listen, I know we can't talk about this. Not officially, but what you did, Holmes was responsible for dozens of kidnappings, hundreds of murders. You took out a major player. I didn't do it for the DEA, Jordan. I did it for my daughter. I know, but still, thank you. Greg hung up. He poured himself a whiskey. Good stuff. The bottle Rebecca had bought for their anniversary years ago. He'd been saving it for a special occasion. This felt special enough. Outside, twilight settled over Austin. Somewhere his old team was returning to their lives. Randall to his gun range, Floyd to his cybersecurity firm, Rex to his medical consulting, West to whatever he did in New Mexico. They'd all answer when he called, dropped everything, risked their lives. That kind of loyalty was rare. Sherry stirred on the couch, mumbling in her sleep. Greg covered her with another blanket, brushed hair from her face. She looked so much like Rebecca. Same bone structure, same determination, even in sleep. He'd kept his promise. Taken care of their daughter. Protected her from monsters. Even though it meant becoming a monster himself for 48 hours. His phone buzzed one last time. A text from Sherry, sent earlier but just now delivered. "I love you, Dad. Thank you for always keeping me safe." Greg smiled, saved the message, and turned off his phone. Tomorrow he'd go back to being a contractor, to renovation jobs and normal life. But tonight he sat in his quiet house, daughter safe, enemies dead, and let himself feel something he hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.